Thanks. Good evening. My name is Lori Shreve Blake, and I'm the Senior Director for Alumni and Student Career Services at the USC Career Center. And I would like to welcome our students to our webinar this evening entitled Hone Your Interviewing Skills and Stand Out to Employers. Our speaker for this evening is alumni Isadora Ocampo. Isadora Ocampo graduated in 2018 from the USC Annenberg School for Communication and Journalism with a degree in communication and graduated as a first-generation woman of color. During her time in college, she held internships in human resources within the entertainment and nonprofit industries. She discovered talent acquisition through her internships and became passionate about recruiting, building relationships, and helping people grow into their careers. She landed a recruiting role at Guess headquarters upon graduation and has been there ever since. When Isadora is not working, she's doing things she loves, like hiking, cooking, baking, watching movies, and playing with her 2 dogs and 2 cats. Please join me, USC students, in giving a warm, virtual Trojan welcome to our esteemed alumni speaker, Isadora Ocampo.
Hello, thank you so much, Lori. Thank you for that introduction. I'm super happy to be here. I'm super happy to be sharing with you guys some tips, best practices, and showing you how to hone in your skills for interviewing and landing a job or internship. So let's go ahead and get started. I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen with you guys. All right, let's go ahead and do that. Share. Okay, let me make this full screen. All right. Okay, so honing your interviewing skills and stand out to employers. This is also on a tool that Lori recommended called Menti. So students, if you can, go to www.menti.com and use the code 643670 and then 9. And that way, in a few slides coming up that are going to be interactive, you're able to join in and participate. So let's go ahead and get into it. Let's see here. All right, so building skills in, we're gonna go over 3 main topics today: building skills in informational interviews, in-person interviews, and virtual interviews. So topic number 1, informational interviews. Informational interviews are amazing. I want to go ahead and in the next slide, I want to do a poll and I want to see how many of you guys have done informational interviews yourselves. So let's go ahead and do that first. So please go ahead and answer the question, have you conducted an informational interview? I'm just really curious to get a gauge and temperature check of our audience and see where we're at with that. So it looks like the majority of you have, which is great. And some of you haven't, which is totally fine. And that's why I wanted to know, so I can maybe go over a little bit of what an informational interview is and set the tone that way. So an informational interview is a meaningful conversation between 2 people, typically a student and an industry professional, in which the student leads the conversation to inquire about the professional's company, their position, their industry, or their field. And you can certainly do an informational interview beyond being a student, but I just put student in here because that's what you all are. But you can definitely do informational interviews post being a student as well. So I love informational interviews. One reason why is because it's a great way for you to explore and gain firsthand insight as to what someone does, what their job is, what their company's like, what their field is like. You're all students and you're all exploring and figuring out what your passions are, what you're interested in, what you want to do. So that's why informational interviews are great. Um, and I also want to introduce the number one skill for this presentation. So skill number one is building relationships. That is so important because when you're a student, as a student right now, you want people in your network. You want meaningful connections. You want people on your side, supporting you, guiding you, mentoring you. You never know who knows who can help you down the line a year from now, 2 years from now, 5 years from now. So informational interviews are a great way for you to start meeting people, networking, and if there's a great connection with the person that you're interviewing, maintain that relationship and build that relationship. Because again, you just never know how the person can help you down the line. And what I will say as a recruiter, we get a lot of referrals, especially being at a big company, right? So we always tend to look at referrals first, and we'll definitely consider them. And I'm going to go over referrals a little bit more in future slides. But for now, that's what I wanted to share. Informational interviews are awesome because of that, and start practicing your relationship building skills. And you can do that through LinkedIn, reach out to people, do informational interviews. As Trojans, what's the one thing that we pride ourselves on? It's our connections, right? Connections, networking. So start putting your hand out there, meeting people, putting yourself out there. Do that. All right. Next slide. So here are some examples of questions that you would ask in an informational interview. Again, just to give you a sense, give you an idea. And I'm like 99% sure the USC Career Center website has a list of informational interview questions that you can go through and pick and choose what you want to ask once you have an informational interview set for you. But here are some examples. You would want to ask things like, what's your day-to-day like? What are the challenges in your role? What are the rewards in your position? What's the company culture like where you work? How'd you get to where you're at now? So asking them about their career trajectory and, you know, their background, all that good stuff, again, for you to seek that valuable information. Just to give you a sense again of the types of questions you should ask. All right, so before an informational interview, do research on the professional. So at that point, if you have an informational interview set, you know who you're going to be speaking to, but as much as you can, do research on that person. Stalk their LinkedIn profile, look up where they went to school, what they majored in, what their background looks like, what their experiences look like. That way you have a really good sense of who you're going to be speaking to. And doing that research might also help you generate some additional questions that you might not have thought of yet to ask that person. So do research on the professional. And prepare questions ahead of time. So as I mentioned, use the resources that USC has for you. Go to the Career Center website, look at that comprehensive list of questions, have an idea in your mind of what you want to ask, because you most likely have 20 minutes, 30 minutes, maybe 40 minutes with that person. And just remember, these professionals, they're super busy, they have full-time jobs. So it's super great that they're sharing time with you. So make sure you're maximizing that time and prepare those questions ahead of time. If you're doing it over the phone, maybe have a list of the questions written out in front of you. That way you know the questions that you want to hit and target, or again, just have them kind of mentally prepared in your mind. But definitely prepare some smart questions, relevant questions ahead of time. And prepare the environment, dress to impress. So depending on the setting that you're going to be doing an informational interview on, you know, you might be doing it over the phone, maybe video chat, maybe in person. Let's go ahead and go over phone call first if you're doing an informational interview over the phone. If you're going to be doing that, I would say keep your cell phone on silent, because I've done informational interviews with students before, as myself as the professional. And one time I talked to this student and her phone was beeping off the hook. It was like vibrating text, like she was receiving all these text messages literally every minute that I was talking to her. And it was a little bit distracting. And it also made me think, is she paying attention to this conversation? You know, and again, I'm busy and I'm super happy to share that time with her, but just be mindful of the environment and of the noises and eliminate distractions as much as you can. Also, in case maybe you want to take notes during the conversation, that's fine. Say you want to do it on your laptop. If you're going to be typing notes, maybe I would just let the person know over the phone, hey, if you hear typing, I'm just taking notes from this conversation. Because I've had that happen to me once, and it also made me think, oh, are they doing homework? Are they doing like other things on their computer? So just be mindful of that, or stick to maybe pencil and paper if you want to take notes during the conversation. And dress to impress. So if you're going to be doing an informational interview through a webcam or in person, even though this isn't a real interview, put your best foot forward. You're there to represent yourself. You know, dress tidy, professional, appropriate. Yeah, you want to put your best foot forward in these situations because, again, you never know who you're going to be speaking to and how that person can help you down the line. Okay, so we'll move on to the next slide. So a few additional tips for informational interviews. Be yourself. Be curious. Again, this is a time for you to explore, ask questions, make the most of this time, and allow the conversation to flow. They might bring up some points that you weren't expecting, and if you have questions, then go off of the organic flow of the conversation. So be curious. And be authentic, be yourself. Don't worry about being super perfect. No one's perfect. Just be you and bring the best version of yourself to the informational interview. And be humble. This is one of my favorites. So what I mean by be humble is remember that no one owes you anything, and don't expect anything from a first informational interview. Sometimes I'll do informational interviews, again, as the professional, and students might ask, can you refer me? Can you put my resume where it needs to be considered for this job or internship in your company? And when you ask for a referral in an informational interview, it looks like that's all you wanted to do the informational interview for, was just to get your foot in the door. And also realistically, after talking to someone for the first time, after those first 30 minutes, I don't know you well enough to put my name on your resume to refer you. When you refer someone, you're representing yourself, the person who's referring the student. So if you want to stand out in a positive way in an informational interview, don't ask for a referral after the first time you're speaking to an industry professional. But what you can do and what you should do, and this is going back to my a few slides ago when I mentioned building relationships. Say you make a great connection with that person, you guys hit it off, they're super open, they're friendly. If you feel like they were super helpful to you, you can definitely ask them, hey, can I follow up with you next month? Can we grab coffee next month? I would love to update you with where I'm at, with what I'm working on. Definitely do that. That's maintaining the connection and building the relationship. And think about it in terms of, real life outside school. When you're building relationships, say you're going out on a first date or you're making a friend for the first time, you don't really know the person that well after the first date or the first meeting, right? You have to keep seeing that person in order to build that trust and build that rapport with them. That way, once you do that, and say 3 months down the line or however long down the line, when you do want a referral in the company that person's working at, or if they know someone that's working at a certain company where you want a referral, then as the professional, I'm going to be much more willing to then refer you or help you out in that endeavor. So hopefully that makes sense. And be grateful. Always say thank you. Always say thank you. send a quick thank you message, thank you email, thank you note, whatever it is. Just say thank you and be appreciative of the time, because again, we're all super busy, and if they agree to do an informational interview with you, that's super awesome, and just thank them for their time by following up with a note. All right. Awesome. So now we're moving into in-person interviews. So congratulations. At this point, if you landed an in-person interview, or during the time of COVID, a virtual interview, we're going to go ahead and get into the tips for that. Okay, so be prepared. It's all about being prepared, putting your best foot forward. Do research. Do as much research as you can on the company that you're interviewing with. So look up the company's LinkedIn profile. A lot of companies nowadays are posting inside look as to what their company looks like in terms of employee engagements, what the company stances are on current issues and topics such as Black Lives Matter or sustainability. Stalk their LinkedIn profile. And that way, that will help you generate some questions or think of some points that you can potentially bring up in your in-person interview, such as, oh, I find it's interesting that your company is doing XYZ. It looks like you guys have a great company culture. I see that you guys have wellness fairs every quarter or something like that. So always stalk the company's LinkedIn profile. And of course, do a general Google search on the company, go to their website and look up the company's history, their values, their products, their services, look up current news and topics and events. That way, again, you have all this information in your mind and in your head and you're fully prepared. You did your homework. So that way, when you go into the interview, and then you bring up those certain points that you found interesting or that you find really align with what you're looking for because of that research that you did on the company, then the interviewer is going to be like, wow, this person did their research, they did their homework. I can tell this student is genuinely interested in our company. So definitely do as much research as you can. And for an in-person interview, be early. Don't just be on time. There's a famous quote out there that says, if you're early, you're on time. If you're on time, then you're late. And I think that's very true when it comes to in-person interviews. So just a rule of thumb, and this is what myself and my team advise our candidates for, is to be no earlier than 15 minutes prior to your interview. So you don't want to be too early. The reason why you don't want to be too early to your interview is because your interviewers, they're expecting you. They know what day and what time you're going to be there. They plan their whole day around interviewing you and meeting you and welcoming you. So say you check in with the receptionist like 30 minutes early or 40 minutes early or something like that. And then the interviewer gets the call that you're there. They might be busy. They might be handling another task. They might be in another meeting. So they could get distracted because you're there early, or they just might be worried about your experience. They don't want you to be bored or become frustrated because you're waiting so long. So you don't want to be too early. 15 minutes is, I think, a pretty solid time to get there just early enough. And also, always keep in mind that take into account traffic, take into account every company has different arrival instructions. So one company, you might have to park in a totally separate structure than where the interview is actually going to be held. And you have to find the certain floor and the certain room that you have to go to. So just keep that in mind. Take everything into account. That way, you're not just on time on the dot, but you're giving yourself that cushion, which is going to be very helpful for you. So hopefully that helps you guys and gives you an idea of a time frame to arrive before an interview. And life happens. Say, goodness forbid, you get a flat tire or something like that. Do your best whenever it's safe to do so. Just give your interviewer a call or the company a call and let them know, hey, this is the situation I'm in. Is it okay if I'm like 15 minutes late? Or ask if they can reschedule. And I'm sure they're going to be understanding in situations like that. So just be communicative. And dress to impress. So I alluded to this earlier with the informational interview. So for a real interview, of course, definitely still dress to impress. I always say, use your common sense, dress appropriately, professionally. I think neutral colors are the safest and the way to go. Always ask your recruiter or whoever set up the interview for you what the dress code is like at that company. It could differ from company to company or wherever you're interviewing. So that's also a good route to go to as well, asking your recruiter what the dress code is. But overall, I think in general, to be safe, neutral colors, appropriate, professional. Also, just be mindful of things like jewelry. Maybe it's not the best day to wear your 10 flashy rings or your bangles on each arm. Just that way you're not being distractive during the interview. And also just be mindful of perfume and cologne. Don't overdo it. All right. Resumes. Okay, please bring enough copies, hard copies of your resume. 100%, the company should have a digital copy of your resume. They probably have access to a printer, but they might not even print it out because they expect you to bring the resume. So always print out more than enough than what you're going to need just to be prepared, and you just never know who you're going to meet. You should have an idea. The recruiter should give you an idea. You're going to be meeting XYZ, right? But if, say, the interview goes super, super well, and maybe they want you to meet an additional team member or two, have that extra copy on hand and say, hey, here's my resume, slide it across the table, hand it over to them, say, I know you probably have a digital copy, but here's a copy in case you need one. All right, so make sure you do that. I've had experiences where candidates did not even bring a resume to the interview, and that was not a good impression. That's not a good way to stand out to an employer. When I consulted with the hiring manager after we met the candidate who didn't bring resumes, the hiring manager told me, how can I even trust this person to, prepare the reports that I'm going to need them to prepare and to print out and to, share with me? So that could be a red flag if you don't bring one. So just make sure you bring them. All right, so a few more tips on in-person interviews. Ask relevant questions, stay on topic, ask relevant questions about the job description, make sure you read the job description thoroughly, prepare some questions based off of that. Ask questions about their company culture, about the team, what the team structure looks like, what the training is going to look like. Ask the interviewers why they like working at that company. Asking relevant questions like that is going to make you that much more prepared, and you're going to stand out, because if you don't ask questions, you're going to stand out in the wrong way, and they're going to think, oh, is this person even interested in our company? They really have no questions at all for us. Interviewing is a two-way street, you guys. It's always a two-way street. They're there to interview you, and you're there to interview them. Always remember that, okay? So prepare relevant questions. And also, on the flip side, I want to bring up a common question that we ask candidates, which is, tell us about yourself. You guys have probably heard of that one, right? If you've done an interview before. That's a very common question. Whenever you get asked that question, make sure you also answer relevantly. So don't answer that question by explaining your whole backstory, how many pets you have, or what your favorite ice cream flavor is. Stay on topic. What they're asking you when they ask that question is, tell me about your professional self. Walk me through your background. What's your major? Why are you interested in this role? So hopefully that helps you guys out, because I know that's a common question, and I've been on that side where I've asked that question and the candidate has told me about something completely off topic, and we just have to stick to the topic here, which is, you know, you interviewing for the job or for the internship. And body language. Body language is huge. There's a statistic out there that says body language says more than verbal words. Every twitch, every movement, everything about body language means something. It tells people how you're feeling, how you're reacting. If any of you guys are studying psychology or something like that, you probably have an idea about this, but body language says a lot. So a few tips for you in interviews: make sure you're sitting up straight, good posture, and very important, maintain eye contact with the interviewer. Look them in the eyes. It shows that you're confident, that you're not scared, that you're not nervous. And it's okay, you know, if you're nervous, that's totally normal, but just do your best to maintain that good posture and maintain that eye contact, because it just shows that, again, you know, you're there, you're putting your best foot forward, you mean business, you're confident. It's a competitive market out there, you guys, and I'm sure you know this. We all know this. It's super competitive out there. Without a doubt, you're going up against at least one other candidate for the job or internship that you're interviewing for. Excuse me. So make sure that you're putting your best foot forward and maintain that good body language, and just be mindful of body language. And send a thank you note. Again, always be grateful, attitude of gratitude, right? Send a thank you note, whether that's a physical, like thank you card that you want to leave at the reception area, or if you want to send up a thank you email, make sure you do so within 24 hours of your interview. Sometimes certain hiring managers will come back to me after they've interviewed the candidates I brought in for them, and they'll ask me, have they sent you a thank you note yet? Have they sent it to you yet? Because for them, it's really the cherry on top. So make sure you send a thank you note. It means a lot, and it can go far, and it could just be the cherry on top. I'm just gonna grab some water. Okay. Sorry, excuse me. Okay, so housekeeping. All right, so if you are doing an in-person interview, do not leave any purses or bags or backpacks on the interviewing table. That's a big no-no. You're not hanging out at your friend's house. You're not chilling at your parents' house. Just leave your stuff, your personal belongings, tucked away neatly by your feet on the floor. It's gonna be fine. It's not gonna go anywhere. And please put your cell phones away. Just put it away. Pretend your cell phone doesn't exist for that interview. You don't need it for the interview. Make sure it's turned off or on silent. I have a story that I want to share with you guys. So last week, there was actually a candidate that came in to interview. It was an in-person interview. And this candidate was a little bit obnoxious. His body language, first and foremost, was a little bit too much. He was like standing in the middle of the room. He was like hovering over the table when I went in to go greet him and say hello. And he had his laptop for some reason. He brought his laptop that was out in the open. He wasn't a creative candidate, so he didn't have any portfolios to show me, but his laptop was there. His laptop case was on the table. And as we were talking, he brought out his cell phone for some weird reason. He just took it out and then put it on the table and sat it there. Major red flags. Don't do that. Avoid doing all of that. So again, just be mindful, you know, you're there to interview for a job or an internship. So just put your things away, be calm and wait patiently for the interviewers. They're going to get to you. You're good. All right, so virtual interviews. Okay, let's get into it. Some more housekeeping. Test your technology. So, as you guys are probably aware, there's many different types of platforms that companies, employers are using to connect in this, you know, web chat, video chat space. There's Zoom. My company uses a platform called Ring Central. There's Skype, Google Hangouts, etc. So make sure you download the program ahead of time, because in case you need to create an account, give yourself that time to create an account, have it downloaded on your computer, and test your technology. Make sure that the audio is working. If you're using like headphones or something, make sure when it's plugged in that the audio is still going to be working. Check your webcam, make sure that it looks good, all looks clear. You want to avoid any last minute technical issues that could potentially eat up the time of your interview if it comes down to that time. So you want to best prepare ahead of time and test out your technology. Make sure you're good to go on that end. And set the scene. So most likely you're going to be in your house, in your apartment, somewhere, right? You want to make sure as best you can that there are minimal distractions. So if you live with roommates or if you live with your family or friends, let them know ahead of time that you have an interview and to keep the noise levels down, just to respect that time. Make sure there's no like super distracting backgrounds. You don't want to be showing your dirty kitchen or your messy bedroom. Not a good way to put your best foot forward. But of course, we all get it. We're all at home in this day and age. That's totally fine. But just do your best to have a like plain or neat and tidy background. That way it doesn't take away from the view that the interviewer is going to be looking at you through. So set the scene. And dress to impress. So I've mentioned this is the third time I'm mentioning this, right? Dress to impress, because even though you're not in person, you still want to wear your best outfit, put your best foot forward, maintaining that, tidiness, professionalism, appropriate dress. So definitely still head to toe. This is a personal thing. I would dress up in my whole outfit, even though like your chest and up is going to be seen. I would still recommend maybe dressing head to toe, because it might put you, or rather it puts me, this is just a personal thing again, it just puts me in the right mindset mentally. Like I feel whole, I feel complete. So maybe do that. That might help you, but definitely with whatever the camera is going to be seeing, make sure that you are putting your best foot forward in that sense, dress-wise.
Isadora, we have a question.
Yes.
Okay. The question's from Jacob.
Mm-hmm.
When in a virtual interview, is it better to have a virtual background? If so, what kind of virtual backgrounds will be appropriate? Solid color, nature, etc.
That's a great question. I would say if you can, skip the virtual background, because a lot of backgrounds that I see nowadays, they are distracting. There's a lot going on. Some of them are super colorful. So maybe do your best to avoid them. Or if you are choosing to use a virtual background, if there's a plain background, then use that, especially if, say, at your house or in your apartment, if you don't have a tidy background, if that's just not possible with where you live, and you find a virtual background scene that you use and that's pretty plain and it looks clean, if it's neat, non-distracting colors, then go with that. Hopefully that answers your question. Okay. All right. So in a virtual...
Sorry, we have one more question.
Okay.
When in a virtual interview, how would you deal with pets as a distraction?
Great question. As best you can, if you do have someone that lives with you, maybe ask that person to entertain them for the hour or two that you're going to be interviewing. If you have a really good friend or someone that's accessible or nearby, maybe have them take the pet with them. Or you know what, if that isn't even an option, let your recruiter or hiring manager know ahead of time, hey, this is the situation that I'm in. I really don't have any other place to interview. I do have a dog, or, I have a cat that you might hear barking from time to time. Maybe just giving them that heads up. But if it's possible, if you can, try to have a friend or family member maybe take care of that pet during the interview. It's happened a few times before where I've interviewed people virtually, and they had a dog that was barking like every so often, and I just understood the situation. I was okay with it. But if you can avoid it, that's best. All right, so hopefully that answers your question.
One more.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so during a virtual interview, is it okay to use headphones to ensure better sound quality, or is it better to avoid headphones?
Yeah, I think headphones are fine. If it's best for you, if it's going to be the best quality for you to hear and to speak through, then I think that's fine. I think you can use headphones, maybe something that's like not as distracting, like something like this, or like AirPods, or if you have like those big headphones, I think that's okay. I'm not too picky when it comes to headphones because, again, it's just the day and age that we're in. Again, if it's going to give you the best sound quality for the interview, then I think it's okay, but use your common sense.
And last question.
Mm-hmm.
Is there a respectful way to follow up on your application status after an interview? Also, what are some signs that they've moved on from you?
Great question. Yes, so your recruiter or hiring manager should, I think, respect you enough, should respect the candidate enough to follow up with you and give you timely updates on your status, especially if you're at that point where you interviewed with that company. If you shared your own time with them, they should definitely be giving you timely updates. If they're not doing that, you can totally reach out, maybe a few days after your interview. They should give you an idea when they're going to update you. And if that date passes, follow up with them. Just send them a nice, respectful email. Hey, just following up. Let me know if you need anything from me in the meantime, because time is of the essence. And sometimes you as the candidate, you might be interviewing for other roles too. And if they don't want to miss out on you as talent, they should be giving you that respect and giving you those timely updates. But again, yeah, if you're at that point where you actually interviewed with the company, it's okay to ask for updates, especially if you need a timely response from the company. And they should give you an idea of when they're going to be updating you. And if they're not, that could be a red flag. I don't like when companies ghost candidates, especially when you've interviewed. That's, I think, rude and disrespectful. They should give you that decency to let you know what your status is. And the second part of that question was, what are some signs that the company has moved on? Again, they should have let you know. They should let you know where you stand with your interview. If they completely ghosted you, I think it's rude, disrespectful, and maybe you shouldn't consider that company. If they don't have the respect to update you about that, maybe you shouldn't consider them ever interviewing with them again. Okay. All right. So back to the virtual interviews and tips. Treat it like an in-person interview. Be early. So still, I would say keep that 15 minutes in mind of being early, not just on time, because again, you just want to take into account any last minute technical issues. Maybe you found out that your laptop isn't fully charged and you have to maybe change to a different location in the house where you're close to an outlet or something like that. So just be early, make sure you're there, everything is perfect, ready to go, 10, 15 minutes before your interview. That way, once the green light goes and you're there at the time, then you're good to go. And body language. So still think about that body language, good posture, eye contact. Eye contact would be through the camera on your computer or laptop. So if you're looking through that camera, then you're looking at the person directly. And say thank you. Of course, with an in-person, virtual, informational interview, always say thank you. Follow up with that thank you note or thank you email within 24 hours.
We have a question, Isadora.
Mm-hmm.
If you reach out to the company, should you only reach out to HR or also include the hiring manager for updates?
For updates, so at this point, if you've done an interview and you're asking for like how to get updates from your like application status. Is that what
Uh,
they're asking?
I'm assuming that's, yeah.
Okay.
If you get your question on the next, yeah, that's pretty much, I would say so, yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I would say, no, follow up with whoever that you've been in contact with. There should be a main person, a best point of contact for you that should have already been established and made clear to you for your interviewing process and for your interviewing experience. You're going to want to follow up with that person. So whether that's the recruiter of the company, the hiring manager, or if it's an HR professional at that company, follow up with that person. I would maybe avoid CCing other people. Just streamline your communication through one person, which again should be established in the beginning portion of the interview process. Follow up with that person. Okay. And you know yourself best. Okay, so what I mean by this is you know you, be able to fluently speak to yourself and to your experiences, to your background, to your interests, to your passions. If you need to practice in front of a mirror before an interview, do so. If you need to practice with a trusted friend or family member, totally do that. I would say avoid memorizing your resume, especially with phone interviews. We can tell when you're reading off a resume, so just avoid doing that. But you know who you are, so practice that elevator pitch, practice practice speaking to yourself and to your experiences. That way you're able to really pitch yourself and really sell your candidacy. And let's see here. Attitude is everything. This is one of my favorite slides. Attitude is everything, you guys. I'm going to give you an example. Say we have candidate A and candidate B. Candidate A is the perfect candidate on paper. They can, without a doubt, do the job, do it well. But say this candidate is a little bit cold. Maybe they're not as friendly or personable. Maybe they don't seem easy to get along with, or maybe a little bit obnoxious. And then take candidate B, has decent experience, maybe not as perfect experience on paper as candidate A, but candidate B is super friendly, eager, curious, excited, positive attitude, trainable. They genuinely love the company. I can guarantee you 100% of the time, the hiring manager is going to want to go with candidate B as opposed to candidate A. Attitude is everything, and that's something you can't buy. You can't buy attitude. You just got to check yourself. You got to have that good attitude and bring it to the interview. You just got to show it in your everyday life. Be friendly, be hardworking, be positive. Those attributes and those characteristics will take you very far. All right. So let's talk about our feelings for a second. I want you guys to go to the slide, and type in a word or two as to how you feel prior to your interviews. Just go ahead and submit a few words, adjectives of how you feel about them. Nervous, excited, anxious, sweaty, a bit nervous, unsure, intrigued, imposter syndrome, very, very anxious. Yeah, these are all very common feelings, super common, and it's okay. I'm here to tell you, you're good, you're okay. The reason why I wanted to bring this up is because I want to give you guys some personal tips that maybe you can practice to help you feel confident and to feel ready and to be in that right state of mind. So I think I have a slide on this. Oh, not yet. So some things that you can do is take deep breaths before your interview. Positive affirmations. Tell yourself that you got this, you're confident, you can do this. You are valuable. You are worthy because you are. You guys are. You guys are Trojans. Come on, you guys are Trojans. You guys are already super amazing. You have so many people standing behind you, like me. I'm rooting for you. Esther's rooting for you. Lori's rooting for you. Everyone's there. They got your back. Just know that you have a good support system as a Trojan, and just tell yourself you got it. And also, I think what could help are power poses. I don't know if any of you guys have heard of power poses, but look it up after this workshop. But power poses essentially are physical stances that you can practice, such as there's one that I like to do, which is like a Superman power pose where I stand up before an interview, like in the bathroom or something. You stand like feet shoulder width apart with your hands on your hips, you know, chest out, standing tall, standing strong. And there's some science behind it that mentally it'll help you really feel in that confident state of mind, and it'll boost your mood. So maybe practice a power pose before an interview and take care of yourself. So make sure you eat and drink before your interview. You know, drink plenty of water, but not too much water to where you have to use the restroom in the middle of an interview, but just make sure that you're well nourished before your interview, because the last thing you would want to do is, you know, in the middle of the interview, you have to go to the bathroom and now you're distracted because maybe you're hungry or you drink too much water or something like that. So just take care of yourself. And lastly, you got this. As I alluded to a few seconds ago, you have a great support system. It's okay. I know it's nerve-wracking. The job hunting process and interviewing process can be daunting and long and, you know, up in the air. But you know what? I think that, you know, I mentioned this earlier with one of the questions, a company should, you know, respect your time and they should give you timely updates. If they don't, maybe think twice about interviewing for that company again. And yeah, so I'm here as a resource. I'm here to help. Hopefully this presentation helped you guys and gave you guys some tips and best practices for these different interviewing spaces. Add me on LinkedIn if you'd like. But yeah, hopefully this helped. That concludes my presentation, and I hope you all enjoyed.
Awesome. We do have some questions in the queue.
Okay.
All right. So how can we tell our story or interview questions when we are asked a question we can't really answer?
Okay, so how can you tell your story? So I briefly mentioned this earlier, but, you know, just be able to speak to your background, speak to your interests. So let's start there. You're a student, you're exploring, you're figuring out what you want to do, what you're interested in. If you landed an interview, then chances are that company, that hiring manager already saw you as a potential fit for this job. So speak to that, speak to your passions, speak to your interests. If you don't have plenty of internship experience yet, then, as you mentioned, bring up your story. Maybe you've done some volunteer work as a student. Maybe there's something about your upbringing that made you interested in that particular company or role or field. Speak to that. Whatever points you choose to bring up as it relates to your story, just make sure it is relevant to the role that you're interviewing for. Again, you don't want to go off topic and randomly say things, you know, like what your favorite ice cream flavor is or how many pets you have. But, you know, if you want to speak to your story and to your history and your upbringing and where you come from, then just do so in a relevant way. That's again relevant to the interview and that's relevant to the topic at hand. And again, you know yourself best. So if you need to practice that question before an interview, then go ahead and do that. But just make sure that it directly ties to the interview and to the job that you are interviewing for.
Okay, thank you. How long is an elevator pitch? I think that's the, or how long should an elevator pitch be?
Yeah, good question. So think about it as long as visualize yourself in an elevator. Say you're getting into an elevator. There's this like executive standing right next to you, and say the elevator ride is 20, 30 seconds long. Just as long as you're able to speak to yourself in a nutshell professionally in an efficient and fluent way that's short and sweet, then that's perfect. You don't want to take too long. You know, an elevator ride doesn't take 2 minutes or sometimes even 60 seconds. So maybe up to a minute, I would say.
Okay. Thank you so much for your incredible advice, Isadora. What is the best, most unique question you've ever asked in an interview? Why did it stand out to you?
What's the best question I've ever been asked? That's been asked of me when I was interviewing someone are just genuine questions when the person is just genuinely interested in the company, and they ask about the company culture, or they bring up something about the company that made it clear that they did their research on that. That's what I would say are just those out of the box questions that aren't as common and that you don't expect, but again, that show that you did further research on the company.
What advice would you have for introverts when it comes to informational interviews?
I love that question because I consider myself an introvert. So the advice that I have for you for informational interviews is just telling yourself that, you know, you're your biggest cheerleader. You got this. Again, you got it. Use LinkedIn. LinkedIn is a powerful tool. I would say that's the best way to ask for an informational interview is just doing research on employers. You can look up people's profiles and their backgrounds, whoever you find interesting. Send them a quick, you know, connection on LinkedIn, add a note to the connection, let them know, hey, I find your background really interesting. I would love to connect. And then once they connect with you, just send another message. Hey, can I please have, 30 minutes of your time? Would love to ask you questions about your background and your career trajectory. And once you get to that point, if you landed the informational interview, don't be nervous. It's okay. We've all been in your shoes. If you're an introvert, that's totally fine. You just got to do one of those things where, take a deep breath, and you got to tell yourself that you're okay and you're confident. And I know sometimes it's a little bit scary putting yourself out there and stepping outside of your comfort zone, but trust me, when you put yourself outside of that comfort zone, that's when you're growing. That's when you're going to get the best results. That's when amazing things happen. So just have that confidence and do it. And it's okay if you're nervous and if you're shy, you just got to take a deep breath and go for it. Go for it.
Great. We have 3 more questions in the queue, which probably will take us to the 7 o'clock hour.
Okay.
But the question is, if you are interviewing for a position in a different state and the company asks for you to attend an in-person interview, is it acceptable to ask for a virtual interview if you feel uncomfortable traveling due to the pandemic?
Yes, 100%. A lot of companies should be even more flexible now with interviews and accommodating virtual interviews, especially if you're out of state. Especially at your level as like interns and entry level job seekers, that should be totally fine to ask for one. And for you to be transparent, let them know, definitely ask, because again, yeah, you might be uncomfortable because of the pandemic. And second, especially if they're not going to offer to reimburse you for a flying out to an interview, then don't do it. If they are offering to pay for you to travel to another state to interview, but if you're still uncomfortable, then yeah, you can ask them, I'm uncomfortable. Is it okay if we do a virtual interview? I think that's a totally fair question.
Great, thank you. How do we avoid summarizing our resume when we get the question? Tell me about yourself.
In a sense, you are summarizing your resume. That's what it is, I think. You're summarizing your resume but you're not memorizing your resume. Remember, that's the difference. You need to be able to fluently speak to your background and to your resume. You have to, again, you're representing yourself. You have to be able to speak to your internships, to your jobs, to your volunteer experiences, to your classes, your major, why you're taking that major, why are you interested in such and such position, company, or role. So I would say maybe jot down your elevator pitch, jot down your answer to that question before an interview. That's what I did when I was in your position. I would practice and I would kind of come up with like an elevator pitch. I would just write down my ideas and thoughts until I was able to coherently and fluently speak to myself without having something that sounded too formulated or, too memorized. But if you need to practice beforehand and jot down some ideas to develop that elevator pitch and to answer that question, then that's okay. You can totally do that.
Great. Last question.
Mm-hmm.
How should we navigate the common technical glitches in virtual interviews that may produce awkward pauses or hinder effectively answering a question? And thank you so much for your time.
Yeah, of course, my pleasure. And yeah, that's something, it could be hard to avoid, right? I mean, sometimes we might have like spotty Wi-Fi, or maybe you're in an area that it could happen. Glitches could happen. That should be understandable by both parties. And it's okay. We're all human. If a glitch happens here and there, we all get it. We all understand. This is the setting that we're in. That should be totally fine. And don't let that make you nervous. Don't let it make you feel awkward or uncomfortable, because again, we're, as cheesy as it sounds, we're all in this together. But it's so true. So don't let it get to you. If it happens, it could be, it's just inevitable. But if you could avoid it, say, you live in a place where the Wi-Fi is just horrible. Maybe let the person know, hey, my Wi-Fi is kind of glitchy. Can we just stick this maybe to a phone interview? Or if you can make personal accommodations to go to someone else's house or another space that does have good Wi-Fi, then consider that.
All right. Well, this concludes our webinar. Thank you so much, Isadora. You've given us so much information. I'm sure
You're
every
welcome.
student present definitely benefited from, especially hearing from a recruiter that's in the trenches every single day, meeting with applicants in many different ways. So,
of course.
Any other words of wisdom before we close out the webinar?
Yeah, I mean, again, I think maybe I'm beating a dead horse with this, but you guys should just be super proud of where you're at. You're already in such a good place. Again, you're a Trojan. You have so many people who are rooting for you and supporting you. We've all been in your shoes. I was there not too long ago, so I totally get all the feelings and what you guys are going through. But again, you're a Trojan. You're amazing. I'm super proud of you guys for even attending this sort of workshop and webinar. So hats off to you. Thank you for showing up and hearing me out. And like I said, connect with me on LinkedIn. I would love to connect, and feel free to reach out anytime. Thank you so much for having me, everyone.
Thank you so much, Isadora.
You're welcome. Bye. Have a good evening.
Bye-bye. Take care.
Thank you. You too.
Bye-bye.